Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Business Insider. Tonight we'll be talking about robotics and how they affect the global economy, and especially the economies of developing nations. We'll be introducing you to this world, the world of robotics. We'll be also talking about the usage of robotics in many fields, like the field of surgery and industry, agriculture, logistics, space, and much more. So please stay with us. And as usual, we'll be starting this episode with a look at our major stories for this past week. The Cabinet has approved general controls that allow the Industrial Development Authority, the IDA, to cancel, reduce, delay fines, or apply a settlement for mechanism industrial and projects developers, according to a cabinet statement on January 25th. The state has taken these measures to help developers and investors in the industrial sector overcome any obstacles beyond their capabilities that may impact the time frame of projects implementation. The Trade and Industry Ministry also suggested that projects delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic would be exempted from fines for 4.5 months, while a 6-month grace period will be granted to projects delayed due to the current economic challenges. And the government is planning to unveil the plan for offering state-run companies on the Egyptian Stock Exchange in 2023 within 2 weeks. The announcement has been made by Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli after a series of postponements for the plan due to the unfavorable conditions of the market. The implementation of the IPO program comes in line with the government's direction towards activating the state ownership policy document, as well as promoting the role of the private sector and bolstering the securities market. Moreover, Madbouli remarked that the cabinet would reveal the names of the companies to be offered on the EGX throughout 2023 soon. And Egypt will host the first edition of the Cairo Food Summit in February to discuss the opportunities and challenges in the agricultural sector and food industry. Under the auspices of the Ministry of Supply and Internal Trade, the summit will tackle ways towards achieving self-sufficiency of basic commodities and boosting Egyptian exports. The summit will be held amid the state's commitment to attracting investments in the agricultural sector and food industry and localizing industries. The event is set to be attended by a group of ministers, officials, business leaders, and decision makers. All right, time now for a short break, and when we come back, we'll be watching a report on our topic for tonight, and we'll be introducing you to our guest here in the studio. Please stay with us. Welcome back, dear viewers. Robotics effects mainly on the economies of developing nations will be our main topic here for tonight. In the company of Dr. Khaled Youssef, the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Navigation, Science and Space Technology at Beni Suef University. Dr. Youssef, a pleasure having you with us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Allow us, Dr. Youssef, dear viewers, to first watch a report on the topic and come back and start our discussion.
Robots are increasingly being used in every industry and are here to stay, and robotics usage has both positive and negative impacts on business and employees. Technology has played a role in making work more efficient for thousands of years, from simple farming tools to current-day assembly line robots in factories. Robots are becoming present in more and more situations in business. They work right alongside human workers or completely replace them. Robots are even being used in therapy sessions for children. While it is certainly true that robots are replacing jobs and are a significant threat to low-skilled workers and somewhat of a threat to middle-skilled workers, there are many positive effects that robots have on the economy. Higher living standards can come about through higher wages, lower pricing of goods and services, and an overall greater variety of products and services. Labor productivity growth, as measured as output per hour, is what leads these things to occur. Robots are unquestionably making the machine aspect of production facilities more efficient. Even if the human component of factories remains constant, increased efficiencies from robotics inevitably leads to more productivity growth. Not surprisingly, with increased productivity comes an increase in gross domestic product. Many people fail to realize that robots are actually creating new high-paying jobs that require skilled workers. While it is true that robots are replacing low-skilled workers and automating the tasks that they are performing, automations are requiring jobs that focus workers on higher value work. While it is true that robots and automation are taking away entire categories of jobs across a multitude of industries, it has never been a better time for workers to get higher skilled, higher paying jobs as long as skilled and educated enough themselves to fill those roles.
Hamid for this report. Back now here in the studio with Dr. Khaled Youssef, the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Navigation Sciences and Space Technology, Beni Suef University. Dr. Youssef, when we talk about robotics, can you first of all please introduce us to this world, this new world, or new for some of us, and give the simplest definitions as to what is the world of robotics?
First of all, robotics, or the robots, actually is a word which means in the past centuries the forced labor, which means that we are using robotics, means like we are using slaves, we are using laborers to do specific actions for us, for the human being. Historically, the word robot is associated with the humanoid, means the machine which resembles the human being, has arms and legs and can talk. So this is even in the science fiction in the past. We hear about robots, we hear about the humanoids. This is the name of the term that is associated in our brains, all of us, in the science fiction of the old films, movies. So when we come to the robotics means a machine that's able to sense and act in an autonomous way, which means that it is not controlled by a human being, but it understands what it is doing and sense like the human being. So the human being is a brain, is a nervous system, is a senses everywhere. We have 5 senses, we know about it. So if we manage to sense the temperature, then we act by removing our hands away from the heat. We manage, if we see a problem using our eyes or vision, we manage to avoid the path towards the problem. So the human being is adapted to the world he is living in according to what he see and hear and sense and act accordingly. So if the machine managed to do this, we call it robot. So the robots is not only humanoids, but also everything that can do a similar task, even either resemble the human being in terms of the form or the characteristics.
It's good that you explained, yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to have legs and arms and a head.
It doesn't have. So the drone for example, is a robot. The drone, which is the quadcopter, is a robot because it performs the same activities. It has the same characteristics, but it doesn't have legs and arms. But it can sense, it can act, it can fly, it can respond. So it is a robotic. But if we have a machine that we control it using a remote control, it is not robotic. It is controlled by human being.
Okay.
So it is not robotic.
Let me ask you this question. I mean, sometimes when you say, you know, he or she is like a robot, sometimes it's a compliment, and sometimes it's totally the opposite. So,
because we think about the robot that it doesn't think. It doesn't mind about what she's doing. So when we call he is a robot, means he is doing it in a routine way and according to an algorithm or steps. So he doesn't understand what he is doing. But this is not the theme of the robots of today, because the robots of today is totally different. It is autonomous. Autonomous means can work according to the situation. There are some sort of cognition, some sort of comprehension to the situation. So it's totally different than the old robotic, which is working on an algorithm. So it is not a matter of steps done by a robotic, it's a matter of understanding done by the robotic upon the sense, upon taking specific instructions.
Okay. And I'm sure that this question, or I guess that this question is in the mind of some of our viewers. Who was the leader in this world? Because the world of robotics, I mean. Japan would come to my mind, but I would have to say that the US, as always, is leader in almost everything. So you tell us, as a, you know, a scientist in this field, was it the US, was it Japan? I mean, who was it? The leader?
Actually, Japan is a leader in...
The pioneer. Who was the pioneer?
Pioneer, they are parallel, by the way, because every country and every even region specialized in a specific type of robotics. So if we are talking about the drone, so the Americans is very pioneer in the drone technology. The German is pioneer in the drone technology. If you talk about the articulated robotics, I will explain what does it mean. So we can call that Japan is pioneering in that. We have Mitsubishi, one of the main company that is very pioneer in developing such type of robotics. So it depends on the family, because the robotics now is more than 12 families.
Okay, 12.
So, more than. So we have a robotic for the exoskeletons, we have a robotic for medical and surgery, we have a robotic for difficult missions like the firefighting, like the bomb controls. We have a robotics for the space. We call it space rover, like the Mars rovers. NASA is very pioneer in developing such type of robotics. Then a lot of missions, which is now mandated to be unmanned, it automatically means it is a robotic based, because it is unmanned. We have, for example, what we call the autonomous car, which is the self-driving car. So this is a robotic. And it carries a human being. But at the end of the day, it is a robotic because it is autonomous. It is moving in the streets, understand the obstacles, taking an action, following the lanes, without human being interaction or even intervention.
Is it safe?
It's safe. And it is proven to be safe.
So let's take the usage of robots, you know, field by field or domain by domain, if you will, Dr. Youssef, and also tell us about, I mean, who are the leaders in, if you can, if you will, in this domain, the medical field, the surgery.
We have the medical, the field which is the arms, the robotic arms. We call it the articulated robotics. We have three types of robotics. At that case, is very important to understand about. We have what we call the articulated robotics, means a robotics that has a degree of freedom. We can have a 3 degree of freedom, 4 degree of freedom. What does it mean, degree of freedom? Means for my arm, I can move my arm forth and back. I can move my wrist around.
That's 2.
I can move my finger forth and back.
3.
So it means we have a 3 degree of freedom. You can imagine that we have a 6 degree of freedoms and 8 degree of freedoms, and that means more flexibility and malleability and more control and more consistency. So such type of let's say microsurgeries which means that we need an arm that is very specific and very accurate in touching what we need exactly, understanding the type of the tissues, understanding what does it mean, is it artery, is it vein, is it... So all of that type of understanding, so it should be, first of all, learned, educated, to understand what it is doing. This type is called articulated robot. We call it in the science articulated robot. We have
You mentioned earlier that Japan is
very
pioneer in
pioneer
this
in
field.
that. Yeah. We have another type which we call the collaborative robots. Means we have two robots, but they are cooperating together. So I can give a hand to the, I can give a tool to to my colleague robot, and the colleague robot is doing the action. So they can do the task collaboratively together. So we call it collaborative robotics, and we have this type also in the surgeries fields. So this type of robotics, and which Japan is very pioneer in the type of robotics. Also, the Americans has some patents in some technologies related to that. We can say that this type of robots, if it is applied correctly, it helps the surgeons doing the surgeries perfectly. But we have here one important point to be added, that it is not replacing the surgeon.
Absolutely.
It is helping the surgeon.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
Yeah. So the robotic is giving the surgeon the area of the accuracy, the area of the understanding. The robotic doesn't get fatigue during the long surgeries. So it can give a warning to the surgeon if there is something wrong he's doing, then it is he's alerted by the robotic. He take care because he doesn't get fatigued like a human being. He's consistent all the time. So the first minute he starts, he has the same energy like the last minute. So that's a big impact for the robotics on the surgeries.
Sure.
But it should be applied correctly, should be applied within the codes and the limitations and the constraints. Then it gives a big impact on that.
I'm sure many sports teams would need robots.
Yeah.
Who don't get fatigued, who exercise the same way in the last minute as the first. Now the field of industry, what about in the field of industry?
We have the field of the industry starting from the supply chain, because we have what we call the robotic on wheels. Robotic on wheels, which is like the forklifts or the tool that is carrying the material from a point to another. We have what we call the AMR and AGVs, which is a robotic that is on wheel, that is not autonomous enough like the one that is used by Amazon today, that you can go to any place within the warehouse, identifying which item you need to fetch, and you get it. And then you move it to the collection area in a very organized and arranged way, without human being intervention. So he understands correctly what he is addressing. You know the location, the shelf, everything. If you go back to even the handling within the shop floors of the industry field, this has a capability to handle the material and give it to the machine. Then the machine fetch the material out of and then all of that by robotics.
Yeah.
And then going and processing the material and giving the product.
Well, that process, surely, Dr. Youssef, would make things more organized and I guess would make mass production quicker. But doesn't this risk unemployment and putting a lot of people out of their jobs?
The human being is a very mature
creature.
Yeah, creature. The human being is not a slave. The human being is not a low-profile labor. The robotic is doing this type of tasks. So if we are talking about the maturity of the human being, we are talking about the more civilized organizations, more civilized countries. We need to give the hard tasks to a machine. But this machine should be helpful enough. For example, firefighting. Instead of giving the soldier the risk to go through the fires and doing some emergency tasks,
we can now send the robots.
Yeah. For the case of the bombs, the activation, we can give it to the robot. And we are doing this, by the way, in Egypt. If we go to the missions for the minings, the difficult missions, the military...
that saw the deaths of many people across many eras.
Even in the military activities. Now, the military, the big armies in the world is using robotics for some Mission Impossible. For example, the UAVs, which is the unmanned fighters or the unmanned aeroplanes, this is a robotic. But what they are using it because it doesn't need a pilot. So this is a robotic. So it is not, doesn't mean the unemployment of the pilots. It means that we give the difficult tasks to the robots.
Sure. The field of agriculture, and I'm sure it is a bit similar to the field of industry.
Yeah, the field of agriculture, the activities of the irrigation itself, the activities of the agriculture itself, the infection control using the pesticides is now done using drones in the world. The machine that is cultivating or vaginating the soil and putting the seeds and making some activities on the soil
is no longer driven by
a
man or a woman.
Yeah. So it is consistent. It is accurate. It is manageable. It doesn't get fatigue. It is very productive. So, for example, we have a case that if we use the machine versus we use a human being for an example of agriculture like the palm trees, you need, for example, to get the dates out of the palm trees, we need one labor for 10 trees every day, for 10 palm trees every day, for 10. This is a very, very low productivity because of the challenges in this type of trees. If we use the technology, we can doing 10 times the value. We can do, instead of 10 trees, we can do 100 trees per day. So this means more productivity. And this means also better control of the yield. So this means more economic impacts. So the robotic, that's why the robotic is not a luxurious. The robotic is helping the human being to be more productive and more economic as well.
Yeah, because the perception is, or until very recent times, that this is something of a luxury. I mean, it's not a necessity. It could improve life in many areas, but it's not a necessity. Now you're saying that robotics are a necessity.
Yeah, robotics are necessary. Robotics should be understood in terms of how to use, in terms of how to implement, because excessive use of robotics is not right.
Of course.
And also the no use of robotics is not right. It's not right. So we need to optimize or balance the situation. We need to make use of the robotics in the increasing the productivity. We need to make use of the robotics in reaching areas difficult to be reached by human being, to make surgeries which is difficult to be done by a single surgeon or a group of surgeons for a long hours, for a long time. We need to use the robotics in the fit and purpose, what we need, which is we need to use the robotic in the right application that should be used.
Now, one very interesting domain would be the domain of logistics. I'm sure, you know, you will have a lot to learn when it comes to the use of robotics in the field of logistics. I mean, it's very interesting. Could you tell us about that?
First, the logistics for the part of the unloading of the ship, for example. The unloading of the ship today is done using cranes and using. So you can imagine that the unloading could be selective unloading. You can select this container because according to the first in, first out, or first in, last out, or all that scenarios of managing the containers on ships, you can make it easier. Also, even the delivery to the delivery of shipments to the homes, even using DHL, have some trials in Dubai, for example, for that case. You can imagine that the drone fetching the chip and send it to you, and you get it from the drone automatically, and you pay to the drone, for example, the shipment.
Wow!
So that's a case. So we have a lot of scenarios and for the logistics, for the supply chain. Amazon today is managing their warehouses 100% manless, unmanned. So it is a success of the technology. it reduced the lead time. It reduced the time to get your items delivered. It increased the efficiency as being published. It is published already in the Harvard Business Reviews by like 25% increase in the. So all of that KPIs, it measure the impact of using a robot to 100% automate the warehouse handling. It can identify that this item is for that person, and this item should be got first, and this item should be delayed. This item need cold store. This item need normal store. All of that is managed automatically.
How big or small is the gap between the advancement as far as the world of robotics is concerned between the developed world and the developing nations?
The developed world is superior in three main things. The first thing is they know how to fit each robot in which application. They don't use the robot for luxurious to say that, oh, okay, we are doing that. So this is the first important thing that differentiate the developed countries rather than the developing countries. The second part is that they have the capability to manufacture the robots, and thus the time to market for them is a bit customized. So they can manage customized robots because they have these capabilities. And they know the pain, so they develop the robot for the pain. So this means that the robots that is developed could be customized for a specific purpose. And this gives them some advantages and some edges. The third part is that in the developed countries, the manufacturing and the agriculture and that stuff is more adopting to these technologies because the education is important. So the people is educated enough to adopt such technologies and to understand this. Going to the other side of the world for the developing countries today, in terms of education, they are becoming...
They're catching up?
Into some extent. Catching up to some extent because you see that for the education, it is still away. It should be more educated towards the technology. But for the part of the fitting purpose, there is a good awareness because we have, for example, in some factories here in Egypt, which Egypt is considered as a developing country, we have some factories, I saw them, 100% automated in terms of warehouse and logistics. So everything is automated and everything is managed for these factories. We have we have for the agriculture a clear specific cases used by the government for a clear use of space and drones for application in the agriculture, and also the file of the water. So the use of the robots, we don't have, for example, in Egypt or in the developing countries, a complete self-driving car. We don't have this, which means driverless. But you can imagine, because the world is now homogenizing, the world is becoming one country. You can imagine that by 2050 you will not find an aeroplane with a pilot.
By 2050? 50.
You will not find an aeroplane with a pilot. It's going to be all of them pilotless, or without. It is self landing, self-taking off, and self-float. So you can imagine.
Yeah.
So this doesn't mean it is an employment of the pilot. It doesn't mean that, because at the end of the day, you have to think, what is the...
I guess they would have to install a pilot just, to reassure the passengers. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe in 2050, I mean, this is a long time away. We don't know how people would think or feel by then. Dr. Youssef, the effect of robotics on the global economy and especially on economies of developing nations, how do you see that?
Focus on the industry and the agriculture is very important because, as I mentioned, robotics means productivity, means more productivity, means more consistency, means better quality. So performance, quality, productivity, we need it. This is actually the three main keys and clues for a good economy. So if we have lands and if we have big areas of agriculture and we need to manage their irrigation or their even pesticide control in a very easy and simple way and very fast way, this means infection control. This means more conservation of crops. This means more productivity. This means more income. And also this means that more towards the Go Green strategy, which is the climate change and controls. Because every crop I conserve means I conserve in front of it the carbon dioxide that is going to be emitted against a rebuild or recycling. So means that we save a lot. So if we need to save our future, if we need to save our income, our productivity, we need to achieve very, let's say, very sophisticated tasks in a very easy way. And to do this, we need to make, for example, 10 actions using one step. 10 actions using one step means we need the help of the robots.
So robotics are no longer a luxury, they're a must, and they have a positive effect on all economies, be it the economies of developed or developing nations.
Yeah, the developing is more needing to this type of robotics. Not, I'm not talking about, for example, the robot for the self-driving cars or the autonomous cars, because this is
less important. One, yeah.
Though it has a good impact on accidents. You can imagine that.
Sure.
Yeah, on the accidents, accident control, and more
eliminates human error.
We have such type. You see the monorail project. If it is unmanned, you have such type. Yeah, and you will not find an accident.
Yeah,
it is totally controlled. You see it in Dubai, for example. You have the monorail on time. It reaches the station on time. You get the passenger on time. It moves without a pilot, without a driver.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the case for the aeroplanes.
Yeah. But maybe because you're in the air. I mean, it's a bit hard to imagine by now. But again, I mean, the world is definitely changing, and it's been fun. Thank you very much, Dr. Khaled Youssef, and it's been very educational. Enjoyed being with you, Dr. Khaled Youssef, Vice Dean of Faculty of Navigation Sciences and Space Technology at Beni Suef University. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Next week, same time, is a new episode. Until then, this is Mohammed Abdurrahim, and this is a goodbye.